All right, it's mock draft time. It is the time for that time of season, Sam. The mock draft season.
Mock draft season.
So we're gonna dabble. We're gonna dabble in some mock drafts. We're gonna have several mock drafts between now and the draft. So why not start now?
More than dabbling.
So we're just gonna do this. We're gonna fly through, and I think for our viewers and listeners, I think it's a great way to just do like a quick intro to when your team's drafting, what players might be available, which ways they could go. Clearly, this isn't, locked in for what's going to happen in April, but it's a good thought exercise right now.
Yeah. We're just dipping our toe in the mock draft water, getting started. It's January the 16th, right? There's a few teams left in the NFL playoffs, but everybody else, they've been in mock season for months.
Yeah, so let's look forward to the draft. Let's get into it. We're going to use PFF's mock draft simulator and go pick by pick. One unique thing here is all 32 teams have their first rounder.
Right, for the first time in a while, right?
Yeah. So let's kick it off, man. Tennessee Titans are on the clock. Number one overall. We've talked a lot about QBs probably going at the top. Well, there's 3 QB needy teams right at the top, and I don't know if I have a third QB that I want going up there. So someone's left outside looking in here.
Right, and who knows if they actually a lot of people don't like this quarterback class, not just because it's only 2 deep, and then you get into who's the third guy off the board, but also a lot of people don't like the top 2 quarterbacks, which at the moment. The consensus board, pretty much anywhere you're going to look, it's Cam Ward from Miami, it's Shedeur Sanders from Colorado. There are a lot of people that don't like either of those quarterbacks. I'm like, this isn't even a 2-quarterback strong class. So, look, I don't think it's as bad as it was when Kenny Pickett was the first QB off the board at 20, and God knows if he'd have gone before the 3rd round if the Steelers hadn't needed a quarterback. But it's not where it was last year, with the 5 or 6 guys that we were comfortable with in that first round. It's somewhere in the middle, but ultimately I think both those quarterbacks go 1-2.
All right, well, let's have those guys go off the board 1-2, and then when we get to the Giants, just say, hey, maybe they sign Sam Darnold, right? Maybe they do something else, because I'm probably not going to just try to force a QB out of massive need for them or the Raiders at 6.
Maybe Danny Jones would come back. One last go round.
Maybe get him on the cheap.
Are we going to disagree in the order? Which one do you want to go first?
I would go Cam Ward. You're a Shedeur Sanders guy.
I am. I want to dislike him, but I honestly think Shedeur Sanders is a very good quarterback.
I want to get into the tape a little bit more. Cam Ward, from what I've seen, though, the playmaking upside, so intriguing. That's the place I would go. He's inconsistent. He's got some of that Josh Allen coming out of college. Like, what are you doing? Why are you throwing the ball back across your body once or twice a game?
Yeah.
But he also has so much special to his game as well. More special, I would say, than Shedeur, which is why I would lean on Cam.
And people do seem to be split on them. So the consensus board has Ward 1, Shedeur 2nd. The ESPN draft board right now has Shedeur number 1, Cam Ward number 2. So they are split. Let's go with the consensus. Let's go your one. Let's go Cam Ward first.
So we got Cam Ward number 1 to the Tennessee Titans, Shedeur Sanders to the Browns number 2.
That'll really please Dion.
Oh, I'm sure he's going to love that, unless he takes over for Kevin Stefanski as head coach.
Are we assuming we're locked into the idea that Cleveland, in this quarterback hell landscape with the giant contract of Deshaun Watson with a consecutive busted Achilles, is going to take a quarterback at 2?
Yeah, I mean, I do believe, not because of Watson, because he might not even play next year.
But my point being, they're stuck with his contract is.
Yeah, but are they the most likely team to pass on a QB out of the top 3? Before Watson maybe re-injured his Achilles, you'd say yes, but
it's like
they're taking somebody.
Yeah, they're definitely drafting somebody, but it's like the quarterback at 1 and 2. I mean, that contract is quite large. I mean, they can afford it, obviously, but it's not like if they drafted a quarterback at the bottom of the first round that they liked.
It's still a rookie QB.
Yeah,
contract.
But the rookie quarterback contracts in the top 5 are not insignificant. Like, if they drafted a quarterback at the ass end of the first round and liked that guy enough to start him year 1, like, that's a cheat code to get away from the Deshaun Watson thing. It's not quite as cheat codey if it's number 2 overall.
I will say there is a possibility that some of these teams grab a Jackson Dart or a Jalen Milroe on the turn in the second round. For this, I would still say let's go Shedeur for.
All right, Shedeur it is. Dion will have to take the Dallas Cowboys job in protest.
So the Giants are up on the clock at 3, and now you're looking at, I don't think there's a quarterback worth going there.
Right.
And just for these purposes, we don't have free agency or anything. Let's say the Giants are going to look at the next wave of quarterbacks at the top of the second round.
Right.
Now they're in best non-QB available. Is that Travis Hunter? Regardless of need. I mean, they need corners. They need receivers to complement Malik Neighbors. Travis Hunter fills both of those roles pretty well.
Well, or one of those roles.
One of those roles, one and a half of those roles.
Yeah, I mean, I guess after the quarterbacks, it's like which team takes Travis Hunter first? Is he the top guy that isn't the quarterback off the board? So much of his unique skill set is tied up in that playing both ways thing. Like if we just focus on him as either wide receiver or cornerback, is he that special relative to the rest of this class? And then you've also got best player versus need. Like, do the Giants instead want to focus on the offensive line is still a work in progress, right? Maybe they could go different positions. Where would you go?
I would probably go Hunter here. The offensive line class, we'll talk about it with the Patriots in a minute here. I'm not completely sold on any of these tackles like I was last year.
And you're playing him at corner? What are you doing?
My Hunter, I mean, I think Lance Erline just recently came out and said 3/4 of the people he's talked to are saying corner with a dabbling in wide receiver.
Well, because that's easier than the other way around,
it's
right?
Easy. It's the most common. It's just the way it is. Like corner is a full-time position. Receiver by nature is a rotational position, or can be in an easier manner.
Like we've seen players in the last couple of decades play corner and have an offensive package, where they get on the field. Marcus Jones was getting a couple of plays here or there. Now, you would think Travis Hunter would have a bigger role than that, but it's easier to do that than it is to take a guy, A.J. Brown, and say, you're also the dime back.
The thing I will recite many times during draft season here, though, 33rd teams own Kyle Krabs, brought it up slightly differently. He fills two depth chart positions with injuries. Right, so it's not just what's he going to do when everybody's healthy. To me, it's what's he going to do if somebody gets hurt. And the ability to fill in at receiver and fill in at corner is extremely valuable. He can go full-time either way at any point. And so that is essentially filling two roster spots. So I think for any team, it's not a fit thing. Any team, Travis Hunter is that valuable and worth it at 3.
Okay.
Let's do it. Travis Hunter to the Giants.
The Patriots, who need wide receivers and offensive linemen desperately.
So this is an interesting one because a lot of Patriots fans wanted to get the number 1 pick, trade down, and fill all those needs in one offseason. They do have a lot of draft capital. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Got to get back to the tape. I didn't love some of the Will Campbell tape this year. Kelvin Banks. I don't know if there's a surefire left tackle prospect.
Well, this ends up almost in a difficult situation. Like, I think the Patriots would probably love Travis Hunter as well. If Travis Hunter's gone, and the best players on the board, I think, theoretically, are defensive linemen at this point. Abdul Carter is being talked about as a potential number 1 overall pick type of player. Mason Graham, the Michigan defensive tackle, like the stars are on that area where the Patriots don't have the glaring need that they need to help Drake May out with, right?
Yeah.
So
it's still probably a need, but not the better get this for Drake May.
Yeah. So I think they would love Travis Hunter, and then they could just plug him in at wide receiver. If they don't get him, do they have to reach for the next best guy, or who they think the next best guy is, or one of those offensive linemen that you don't love?
Yeah, and I thought I would love – I think I'd still be fine taking Will Campbell here, but I know some people aren't as sold on him. I wouldn't hate Will Campbell. Teteroa McMillan is also worth consideration here when you're talking about receiver. Is he as a lead as a Malik Neighbors or Marvin Harrison Jr. as a prospect or some of those other guys? Maybe not, but – there's one of your weapons when it comes to Drake May. And the risk, though, of getting the second tier of tackles might be too risky. So, I don't know. I mean, Abdul Carter, I think, is also legitimately in play. And then it's like all tackles and receivers for the next round.
But they did that last year. It's like if you're not throwing the premium picks at those guys, you might end up with nothing. So do they have to take one at the top just because the need is so acute? And this is – obviously, free agency is still to come. They have a ton of money to spend in free agency. Maybe they will flip this draft pick for a veteran, right? Maybe they can try and trade for an answer in a way that, we don't know how it'll pan out. But at current need, I think they have to address one of those two positions.
All right. You want to go Will Campbell?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, let's go Campbell. He's the consensus top tackle, number 8 right now on the consensus board. Will Campbell from LSU goes to the New England Patriots, puts the Jaguars on the clock now.
Ooh.
Now, Abdul Carter, next guy up as far as the consensus board goes, Teteroa McMillan at receiver. Do you want to get another first-round receiver to complement Brian Thomas Jr.?
You could. I feel, is like Mason Graham on the interior. Like, I feel like they, given that they've kept Trent Baalke in place, are not drafting another first-round edge rusher because they're like, we've got one great guy in Josh Hines Allen, and then we have our other guy who I have to claim is great, otherwise I look silly. So Trayvon Walker is locked in as well and never comes off the field. So you can't add Abdul Carter to that mix, can you? You have to go, the interior isn't as strong. We'll add Mason Graham.
Mason Graham would be an interesting one there. I think he's probably the one interior defensive lineman worth a top 10 pick here.
Absolute monster.
Could use that on that defensive line. I don't hate Mason Graham.
I think Mason Graham would be the pick here.
All right, let's do
Who's
it.
Who's the athletically freakiest player that we can add to Trent Baalke's
Abdul
roster?
Carter.
Okay.
It'll probably be Abdul Carter. Where's number 11 at Penn State? I mean, he's going to be tough.
Okay, fine. It's Mason Graham.
Wait till we get to Ashton Genty discourse.
Yeah, Mason Graham it is.
All right, Mason Graham, powerful defensive lineman.
Yeah, he'd be a great pick.
Explosive block shedder, I like to call him.
Block shedder.
Yeah. Mason Graham to the Jags at 5. That puts the Raiders up on the clock. Similar QB questions.
Again.
We'll get him on the turn. Let's just keep saying them. Raiders,
they can't take one.
Saints,
here,
anybody
right?
that needs a quarterback, we'll get him on the turn.
Unless Drew Aller reverses course and comes into this draft.
Going back to school.
Right. Unless he changes his mind, comes into this draft.
I don't know if I want him this high. Not gonna lie.
But even if he's the only one you would even consider, right? There's no way you're drafting Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe.
Jackson Dart hive is going to be cooking these next few months.
You're not taking any of those other guys at 6. You've got to go somewhere else.
I would say Abdul Carter.
They have to draft him.
Is the guy here for the Raiders. Just
someone
opposite Max Crosby. I don't think Tyree Wilson is more of like a move him around type of guy where he could maybe be effective, but I don't think he's going to be that 7 overall pick effective.
This would be the Brock Bowers pick again. It's like you just take the absolute slam dunk best player on the board that people are talking about as an absolute superstar, and it's just unfortunate that it means you still don't have a quarterback.
And Carter's not as polished as other edge rushers, but he's only played the position full-time for 1 year. And then the other thing that we'll talk about, I think ad nauseum over the next few weeks here, is the Abdul Carters, Jalen Walkers of the world that are in this draft that are not full hybrid but can move around and play linebacker. Like they've all played linebacker. Might be more useful in today's NFL. So the way teams are playing and sim pressuring and all that stuff. So give me Abdul Carter to the Raiders here at 6.
I like it. He was absurd PFF grade last year, 66 pressures, 92.2 pass rushing grade. And as I said, people are talking about him as someone that could go number 1 overall if teams don't like the quarterbacks.
Really nice college football semifinal game against Notre Dame in his last college game as well. Jets at 7. Again, we're not going to take a quarterback here.
In the post-Aaron Rodgers era.
Assuming Rodgers is gone.
And everybody else.
I like receiver, man.
Clean slate.
You don't have Rodgers number 2, Alan Lazard, probably coming back. They could still, they're going to need a lot of help in the secondary, opposite Sauce Gardner.
That's what intrigues me. DJ Reed, presumably leaving in free agency, has already said he wants out of the Jets. Do they draft CB2, who could then give them, again, like the best cornerback pairing in the NFL if he's good?
Consensus Sport has Will Johnson out of Michigan as number 6 overall, the top corner, not named Travis Hunter.
Yes.
So I think he's in play, and I think Tetairoa McMillan is in play.
I would be fascinated by the Will Johnson pick. I think they could.
You're going to make me go Will Johnson.
Well, I think wide receiver is a bigger need, but I would be very intrigued by.
I'm good with that. Let's do it. Will Johnson from Michigan to play opposite Sauce Gardner, replace DJ Reed. Now they need some safeties and receivers later in the draft. Will Johnson.
Not to mention the quarterback.
The Jets. Dr. Eric Egers. Carolina Panthers now.
You should have texted the doctor. Find out what he would do.
Eric, who are you drafting?
Would you take Ashton Genty?
We're going to do it. Let's make that a bit. Every time we mock for Carolina.
Give him Ashton Genty.
All right. Let's just do it.
He'd be so mad. I'm so upset.
Oh, yeah. You want to give him? That'll be the bit. Let's give him
every
a running
mock. We give Carolina Ashton Genty.
So think about him, Chuba Hubbard, and when Jonathan Brooks gets back.
Think of that combination.
How are you going to stop it?
You could find a 3-headed monster like that in the NFL anywhere. You can't find one. They don't exist anymore. We're
going to draft Ashton Genty for you in every mock draft this mock draft season.
Like or dislike. I don't believe they would do that. This is a good fit for McMillan, right? They still need receiver help.
Yes, it would. Bryce Young help.
Outside of Travis Hunter and his whatever he is McMillan your number 1?
Is McMillan?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say McMillan number 1. I think he does everything well. I got to go back on some of this year's tape and everything, but he does everything well. I don't think he's a speedster, but just feel for the position, route running.
He's huge. Like he's 6'5".
Size, yeah. Him and Jalen Coker could be a nice little 1-2.
It's ironically teaming Bryce Young up with some size at the position.
He's going to be way bigger.
Just in the aggregate, we're a good average size team.
I'll say this now: consensus board. If you look at edge rushers, Mykel Williams from Georgia is at 11. James Pierce from Tennessee is at 14. Jalen Walker, the hybrid linebacker edge from Georgia, is at 15. Nick Scorton from Texas A&M is at 16.
Would your approach be to? I was asked this on a Giants podcast. I was like, look, you need to get offense, regardless of whether you found a quarterback in the draft, whether you're going with a bridge. Like either way, that guy needs offense, and you can figure out defense later. Given the resurgence of Bryce Young are we still in very much let's make sure Bryce Young has a good situation around him mode, as opposed to the defense is garbage, let's add talent there?
I mean, you need both, obviously.
Sure, but like priority-wise.
Yeah, I think you're gonna have to play the depth. Just like last year, we would say maybe get the receivers on the turn. Usually, you don't get defensive linemen in the second round and feel great about it, but in this draft, you might. So I'm going to play. I think in this case, let's go McMillan here.
Okay.
And then think line at but I think Pierce and Mykel Williams. I think all those guys have to be in play for the Panthers.
New Orleans.
Saints are up, man. They just need help everywhere.
Yeah.
And they could potentially draft a quarterback. Don't know what the Derek Carr situation looks like.
Is this the first pick where you would consider Genty?
I mean, no. I mean, if I'm a
which
GM
is not to say that's
in
their
the top
biggest
15,
need.
No.
But I don't think any of the previous picks it's even up for discussion. Like I don't think Genty is even a debate for any of those teams. But this is the first one where I'm like, I could see that.
I would feel very dirty given
very dirty.
Yes, I'd feel dirty given the Saints' needs. Plopping an elite running back in there.
I think it would be a mistake, but I think I could, it wouldn't shock me.
We're going to get another discussion that's going to be.
And to be clear, not because I think Genty isn't good enough, but because we've had this discussion, right? If you need the guy to fix things, it's a problem. If things are already fixed and you need a guy to come in and cook, he's your guy.
There were 8 running backs in the consensus top 100. It is a very deep running back class. Mm-hmm. And so if you tell me, I'm team Cam Scattaboo. I'm team Scattaboo. If you tell me I'm going to get 2 players and then a Scattaboo in the third, I'm going to feel much better about that than Genty and then 2 players later.
All right.
And I love Ashton Genty. Probably give him to Dallas.
Wow.
What?
You just give him to Dallas, huh? Edge rusher.
Is this what we would do? We always say, is this what we would do? Are we being predictive?
We don't have time to come up with that. It's just who let's figure it out.
We're just making
on the fly.
Things.
Let's go. Edge rusher for the Saints, surely. That's
they're
going to
go athletic freak Mykel Williams.
Williams.
Edge out of Georgia.
All right.
They could use pass rush. He won't be the complete. Yeah, we'll take Mykel Williams. That's fine. Let's click it. He won't be the guy that's full, zero production Trayvon Walker for us, but, in between. Between that and, like, the high-end edge. Chicago Bears at 10.
They need running back.
Be interesting with the new – depends on the new coach.
Well, that's a team – you wouldn't be asking him to fix everything. Like, that's a team with a lot in place. They've got some receivers. They've got a quarterback who's obviously inconsistent, but, is functional.
They hate their offensive line.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's as bad as people think.
Correct.
But it's probably more bad on the interior.
More bad.
It's probably worse on the interior. So you're probably looking at, like, the second round. I think there's some guards
but then you're,
in this draft. So there's nobody up top we're taking there.
Exactly. So you're not taking you're probably not taking an offensive lineman with the 10th overall pick. Are you taking
the pass rush, man?
Yeah.
I think they could go pass rush here.
Is this where we're getting Pierce? James Pierce Jr.?
I would take James Pierce Jr.
We're in his hype video, you and I.
We are in his hype video. We have to put him in the top 10. We're obligated.
We have to. We were talking about him. He could go number 1 overall a
year
year ago.
Falling.
Yeah,
dude, nobody moves like James Pierce, man.
I noticed, interestingly, on his hype video that there are no dates to those quotes that came out. It's just us saying them.
Yeah.
The fact that it was said
last spring.
The fact that it was said late April 2024 is absent from the context of the video.
Matter. I said he could go number 1 overall, and here we are at 10.
Here we are. It's a bargain.
James Pierce.
James Pierce Jr., edge rusher from Tennessee,
Bears.
who I comped last year, 2024, to Javon Kearse, the way he moves around a little bit. The freak.
You comped him to Javon Kearse?
A little bit, yeah.
You did, huh?
Yeah.
That's good. I gave a Kearse comp out to somebody recently, I think. Or no, somebody, I don't know. I pulled out some sort of Kearse play. All right, let's go. Number 11. James Pierce to the Bears. Niners at 11. They could use any of these edge rushers too, man.
Yeah.
Do they need tackle proofing for the future.
That offensive line was a problem this year relative to previous years, and Trent Williams isn't getting any younger.
It's a very good draft for defensive linemen. I'm scrolling down a little bit. The offensive tackle question, Josh Simmons is the one I have the most questions about. The Ohio State guy. He's only had one decent season at Ohio State. Was pretty good in pass protection for about 6 weeks before getting hurt. Just hasn't played as much as some of these other prospects. I still think Kelvin Banks is probably good enough. Would you get a tackle for the future for Trent?
I would, I would be very interested in adding an offensive lineman. Period. If you have one that has flexibility, position flexibility, that is also intriguing.
I think Banks could play zone guard.
I think some teams have talked about him potentially projecting inside.
I've seen Will Campbell talked about as a guard, and that surprised me. So that's why all of the elite tackle prospects, in air quotes, have had the word guard attached to them. It's
never a great thing.
Like nobody was saying that about Joe Alt or J.C. Latham or any of those guys. Talisi Fuanga last year or Fashnu. Nobody's saying that about the guys last year.
Yeah.
There are some tackles I kind of like now projected back into the first and into the second, but I don't mind taking Banks here.
Banks?
Yeah. Let's go Kelvin Banks.
Texas offensive tackle, some future proofing for that offensive line, and potentially, he could challenge at right tackle right away.
Dallas Cowboys.
Oh boy.
Now, I actually don't hate Genty here. For their other issues, could they shore up the line? Do they have a potential retiring Zach Martin? And I still don't trust Tyler Guyton at left tackle. Yeah, that's all true.
This is what he would do, right? Jerry would make this pick.
No, because remember, Jerry's sharper than that, right? Like they didn't draft a first-round defensive tackle for years, and he's like, oh, it's not a valuable position. Like he thinks about that stuff.
He also did that whilst drafting Zeke at 4 overall.
He touches the ball more than Jalen Ramsey, you see. That was perfectly good reasoning.
Uh-huh.
You're right. Let's do it. I think this is, if we're not going to give Ashton Genty to Dr. Eager and the Panthers, we're going to give him to Dallas.
Yeah.
By rule.
Dr. Eager has replied with simply LOL.
LOL.
Yeah. I
like that he's not tipping his hand. That means we don't know.
Keeping his cards close to his chest.
We don't know what's going to happen at 8 with the Panthers. Give me Genty to the Cowboys. And I also think it can make them better.
Yeah.
Because he's awesome.
Right. Their offensive line needs to improve. It was a problem at times this year. But, like Rico Dowdle eventually got given the lion's share of the workload and kind of did pretty well down the back end. Genty should be so much better than that.
All right, let me tell you right now. I think this is where the draft takes a turn.
Takes a turn?
I think maybe even earlier.
What does that mean?
It's just I don't know if any of these prospects are
good,
elite. This is where I think the difference. There's always a tipping point. In this draft, it might be 5.
You're saying honestly, this is where the weird picks start?
It could go anyway. And the consensus board right now, or the PFF board that's on the screen right now, I think there's going to be a lot of changes. There's going to be a lot of different flavors for different people. I do think this draft is deep. I do believe picks, say, 20 through 100, there's probably a lot of good players there. But when you say, hey, is this guy really worth 13? I think we're in a tough spot.
Can I give you a left field pitch for this position?
Sure.
Tyler Warren, tight end from Penn State.
I was thinking about it. And then I hate taking tight ends this high.
Yeah.
And I know some people. Look, Tyler, I know you love Warren. Mm-hmm. You're going to be a big Warren fan this whole draft season?
Hell yeah.
He's not Brock Bowers. I don't think he should be considered in that conversation. But the dude wins. He's got that versatility. I don't know how much that matters, the fact that he takes direct snaps and throws left-handed and can throw the ball a little bit. But, it's a weapon for Tua and the Dolphins.
And in
look excited about
in an offense that might have to evolve this offseason. I don't know where we're going to be with the Tyreek Hill thing.
They need playmakers.
They got Jonnu Smith very involved late in the season. Maybe this offense is evolving in a different direction, and Tyler Warren is the kind of guy that could help that.
Let's do it.
Nice. I do like that pick.
Tyler Warren. You saw him in person.
I did, from a great distance, but I did see him in person. Yeah.
You should go to his pro day. You should go out to...
I guess. Yeah.
Go to Happy Valley for the pro day. Tyler Warren at 13 to the Miami Dolphins, tight end. Colts up on the clock. Don't they pick 14th every year?
Probably.
For the 12th straight year, the Colts pick at number 14. Do you have any initial thoughts? Because, again, there's not like a slam dunk.
Yeah.
Got to
They're
have
just a
this
sort
guy
of
or that
solid
guy.
roster all over the place. Like their defense, I think, has more weaknesses than their offense, but only because they've drafted so many young players that are not necessarily dominant forces. And remember, the defense, that was the sacrificial lamb, right? Gus Bradley was the guy deemed to have been responsible for all ills, so he's gone.
Yeah.
So the scheme might be changing.
Scheme might be changing. I haven't liked their corners, but they've been reasonable. Like when you say solid, I mean it really is. You look up and down the roster. It's like they got starters everywhere. Yeah. They have maybe not enough impact players. The cornerback class is going to be interesting here because again, consensus board right now. Notre Dame's Benjamin Morrison is now at 22. He's the next guy on the consensus board, and then Siobhan Revelle Jr. from East Carolina at 23. Both of those guys got hurt very early in the season. So they're both coming off injury. Don't know if they're going to be able to work out pre-draft or whatever, but they're both really good players. This actually might be the point in the draft where you get guys that, should be going borderline top 10 that maybe you get in the middle of the first round, like those two corners.
Mm-hmm. So we go in corner with them?
I think that's one of the positions we could look at for Indy.
Yeah. I mean, I think their offensive line is in pretty good shape. I think their receiving core is now in pretty good shape. Their defensive line, maybe if there was an interior player that we loved, we could grab one here. Is this too early for Kenneth Grant, the other Michigan defensive tackle?
I think it probably is.
Like that would be an
big
intriguing
body, nose tackle.
Yeah, that would be an intriguing body to add to that defensive line, but would potentially be a bit of a reach.
I don't want him that high.
Yeah.
Do you want to go back to edge and say you got Latu last year, Kwity Paye could move on and just keep loading up on the edge? I think Scorton could be a good option there.
Yeah, wouldn't hate it.
Shamar Stewart's going to be he's going to be a riser at 6'6", 290 out of Texas A&M. So we have sorted there. Let's go Nick Scorton.
Texas A&M.
Texas A&M. I don't know if he's going to be the freak athlete that they want.
Oh yeah.
We just stole an edge rusher from Atlanta. Who's absolutely taken somebody on the defensive line. They only have 4 picks as well. Atlanta, that's going to have to retool that defense.
Wait till we get to Minnesota.
So Nick Scorton from A&M will go to the Colts at 14. Falcons at 15 here. Got to go defensive line.
I remember they did the defensive version of what the Patriots did last year, where it's like we took a quarterback up top, so now we need to hammer defense for the rest of this draft. And they drafted a bunch of guys with their next few picks and did not necessarily get the return from that. They had to trade for Matthew Judon to help out, but like Rook Ororo, Braylon Trice got hurt and didn't feature at all, right, in the season. Like the players they drafted did not have that impact. So did they just go back to the well, like we're saying the Patriots need to?
I would say they have to go back to the well.
All right, so who's our guy?
I'm looking at the PFF board there. Kenneth Grant on the interior, Shamar Stewart at edge, Jack Sawyer at edge. I don't think any of those guys at this point. Jalen Walker by name is a linebacker.
Right.
But he really is a true hybrid player. Like he had at some point last year the literal same number of snaps in coverage and rushing the passer. You don't see that often. And Raheem Morris kind of uses those hybrid players. He might be a really good fit.
Well, they've got Caden Ellis.
They have Caden Ellis already, but I don't know if you want a hybrid player or if you do want a true 4-down pass rushing edge, 3-down edge. But Walker fits what they want to do.
Let's do it.
You want to do that?
Yeah.
All right. Jalen Walker to the Atlanta Falcons, puts the Arizona Cardinals. This is what a stretch this is, by the way. Falcons, Cardinals, Bengals all need a lot of defensive line help in a defensive line heavy type of draft.
Yeah. I mean, the Cardinals were that team where the defense, it just looked like a list of preseason players. But actually, some of them played above their skis, you would say, or ahead of their skis last season, particularly on the back end. The coverage, I think, was a lot better than I was expecting it to be. The defensive line is still very much a work in progress, I think. I mean, this would be an area where I would be interested maybe in Kenneth Grant.
I don't know. I see he's at 21 on the consensus board. PFF, so Trevor's board here has him. He's got him at 19.
Don't you think that he's going to get the hype of like the highlight reel, like what he could be? Maybe he isn't that all the time,
but a
he
lot of that
benefits from playing next to.
We have an email question about Jordan Davis that we're going to address in the coming weeks, where he was 340 freak athlete, but he's only been out. He's in Tavondre Sweat's at 340. He goes top of the second. I think you want to get those guys later.
Yeah,
Davis went at 13, but that was after he had that ridiculous combine.
Right.
Probably jacked up his hype a little bit.
Sure. But I just feel like the potential projection for Grant is going to be higher than the baseline production so far.
Yeah, and like I said, at this point in the draft, I don't know. Honestly, I like the guy lower. I like Walter Nolan better. I think he's got legit pass rush ability. He's at 28 on the consensus. Where's Trevor have Walter? He's got him way lower.
Hates him.
I'm glad he's come around on
there
Trey
he is,
Amos.
34.
Amos is one of my guys. See, it looks like a reach right now, but these things are all going to change.
Of course, yeah.
I like
we're
Nolan. I think
we're in
Nolan's
January.
a mid-first, not a late-first guy.
All right, so where are we going with this?
You wanna take
We're going
Nolan?
defensive line, right?
Yeah. Do you want to take Walter Nolan?
Okay.
I think he's the next best pass rusher
All right.
for interior defensive line. Let's do it. Walter Nolan going to Arizona. Bit of a surprise there. And that steals a guy from Cincinnati who needs something similar.
Bonus.
I think they need the next edge or the next interior D lineman.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Anywhere else that you would go there? Malachi Starks, by the way. We haven't talked a lot about Malachi Starks. I got a take on Starks.
Oh, yeah? Well,
Might move him to corner. Depends on how he runs.
so is T. Higgins gone?
Oh, that's a good question. Because Luther Burden could
Correct.
play. Luther Burden could.
So if T. Higgins is
absolutely
gone,
play.
I'm very interested in Luther Burden. If we find a way of making that happen and T. Higgins is still here, we're obviously going somewhere else.
I mean, I'd be interested in both. I think even if he walks, isn't there a point where you're just like, hey, Joe Burrow's going to make this thing work no matter what?
So don't add
But
receivers?
no, not that you don't, but just don't spend a first on a receiver, right? Get guys later, but you kind of take your chances like Kansas City did, right? You said we're going to have a little bit lesser of a receiving core to build up our defense.
Maybe. I mean,
and they need to build up their defense.
well, they do, obviously, based off this year. They also, they got rid of Lou Anarumo, who's had very good success with that team, but also was presiding over this defense that was hemorrhaging points all the time.
I don't know how they feel about their cornerback room either.
Yeah.
So I do think the two injured corners would be interesting here, where DJ Turner was showing signs of life last year. I thought Josh Newton was a fifth rounder who was feisty. Cam Taylor-Britt had been he got benched like 5 times.
Right.
But he has potential. So I don't know how they feel about that, but I feel like that could be a fit as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a weakness, whether or not those guys are capable of playing well, but I don't think they do on a consistent basis.
Let's assume Higgins is back.
Okay.
We're going defense.
Right.
Starks is good. I don't know that he's a pure safety. I would honestly consider him at corner, but he's got a lot of versatility. Can play the slot.
So their safety spot is interesting because they made that the sort of classic error signing of Geno Stone coming off a career year where he hadn't really played at that level for most of it, and he didn't back that up last year in Cincinnati. Jordan Battle was better last year than he was the previous year. They'd brought back Von Bell, presumably just sort of help with the communication in the back end. But it's not like you would look at that and say the secondary was fixed after they made those moves at safety. So would you bring in a Starks?
Yeah, I got to rewatch him again this year a little bit. I think he's just really good in man coverage, versatile, just a really good football player.
Yeah.
Does that fit?
I mean, good football players tend to fit bad defenses.
Good football player to the Bengals. Let's do that. Let's get Malachi Starks.
Done.
They need help on the back end either way. Seahawks up here.
Ironically, with huge holes on the interior of the offensive line where they don't draft players in the first round.
We gave them a guard every time in the first round last year.
And despite them telling us, we don't do that. We don't think they're value at this spot. We want to get them later in the draft. And they did. And it was a problem.
In the third. Yeah, they had problems this year.
So this is a classic, like what we would do versus what they will do. They will not draft an interior offensive lineman at this spot. We would almost every single time.
Shamar Stewart, maybe big. They also have just good, solid edges over there. The Boye Mafes.
Right.
And, some of the guys they have there. I don't know about tackle, how much the Abe Lucas injuries the last couple of years. They might want to go tackle. I could see that.
I mean, he was definitely an upgrade over what they had out there when he was injured, but it's not like he's been amazing.
Yeah. Do you want to go tackle here?
I think you could definitely justify
And,
it. Simmons is your guy?
I don't care for Simmons as much. I think Wyatt Millum from West Virginia could sneak into the first round. I liked him more than I ran him by Renner. Renner I think has him in a similar spot here, but I liked Wyatt quite a bit. And then Ursery from Minnesota. Ariante Ursery. He's low on the PFF board there, 63. Consensus board, though, has him at 29, much higher.
Wow.
But I think he could be one of the next tackles off the board. Simmons is getting some hype, though. Our friend Dane Brugler talking about him maybe being the best pure tackle in the draft. So I don't mind going Simmons here, just projecting what might be happening here. Yeah.
All right, let's do that.
Let's go Josh Simmons, Ohio State. Bucks on the board here at number 19.
They would take Burden right here, just in terms of like future proofing.
Mike Evans.
It's one of those classic.
Chris Godwin's a free agent. Jalen McMillan was fantastic this year.
Yeah, it's one of those classic, like it's not necessarily an acute need, but it definitely sets in place a succession plan.
I think corner, though, is a very acute need. Where it's, where are they at with Dean, Zion
McCollum, into like the inside, the slot, I think is well covered.
Dean might be up.
Jamil, I think he's still there.
Up. No, they get.
I think they're okay.
Oh, you know what? I'm just thinking because McCollum did. They're gonna have to
improve.
pay him soon. He had a breakout season.
Yeah.
Tyke Smith plays the slot pretty
right.
well.
I think they're covered in the slot. I wouldn't.
Edge though, you have to look at as well. Yaya Diaby, good.
Right.
Everyone else, potential free agent. Chris Braswell in the second round last year. I think Edge or the Burden pick.
I would take Burden for value at this spot. Like I think.
Yeah, I'm
he's
okay
the
with
guy.
That. Let's do that. Luther Burden. I would grab maybe one of the edge rushers on the turn though.
Right.
Because those guys could fall.
Denver comes up at pick number 20.
I think the way they ended up solid across the board roster wise, a lot of people want to see Tyler Warren fall here. They want to see a tight end added to this offense. I don't know if Colston Loveland is good to go at this point in the draft necessarily, and that's like a super need pick for Denver, just kind of like fill that spot, but I think that's going to be a common one.
Tight end.
I think, yeah.
Do you think that they like their receivers enough to sort of stand pat with what they have? Cortland Sutton obviously is really good, and then they have a bunch of young guys, Marvin Mims, who they've sort of moved into this Weapon X type of player. But then it's like, Troy Franklin, who we loved at draft time but didn't do much year one. Devon Vele, Little Jordan Humphrey still out there getting snaps for them. It's not a great group.
I don't know where you go next at receiver. So this is going to be changing soon. Matthew Golden is really high. Trevor's high on Golden. I think the rest of the industry is going to start catching up. And we're going to say, like right now, Matthew Golden's at 61 on the consensus board. Daniel Jeremiah just came out recently saying he wouldn't be surprised if he's wide receiver 1 or could see him being the top receiver on the board. Trevor's got him pretty high here.
Trey Harris is very high on some boards.
I know you don't love Emeka Ibuka.
Do not.
I'll tell you who I love on the list is the guys in the 50s that I want to get in the second round. Xavier Restrepo and Jaden Higgins. I want to get those guys in the second. I love the second tier of receivers. I think that's where the value is in this draft. I'm willing to buy into the Matthew Golden hype. That dude moves well and runs routes well.
Okay. This high?
What's that?
This high?
Yeah.
Okay.
Similar to the PFF board. At least somebody's up there with him.
Done.
Matthew Golden.
Ooh,
to the
Pittsburgh
Broncos as a weapon.
Pittsburgh number 20.
Where are we going to go with Pittsburgh here? They need receivers too.
Yeah.
They might need a lot of receivers.
I mean, they might need a lot, period. They've got, obviously, both those quarterbacks are up for, contract is up on both those quarterbacks. They do need
want to
wide
go Jackson
receiver.
Dart?
No. They do need wide receiver. They probably need some help on defense as well. Like, you could go to a lot of places for Pittsburgh.
I think this would be a great spot for those corners.
Okay.
There's still other issues elsewhere. I think you get receiver later. They'll just draft a second or third round receiver as always. That works out well. They'll have Roman Wilson coming back next year. I would grab either Morrison or Ravel.
All right.
They're both really good.
Morrison?
Yeah. I like Morrison. Benjamin Morrison coming off of his injury, going to Pittsburgh. Chargers up on the board.
Ooh.
They're going to be paired with receivers and tight ends quite a bit as well.
Desperate need at wide receiver. But, we've taken them already.
Yeah, I don't think the value is great here. I think pass rush, there's already questions about Khalil Mack.
Yes, free agent for the first time in his career.
Yeah. Who's
and
next
yes,
here for
potentially retiring even if he isn't coming back. Or even if he is coming, whatever. Either retiring or leaving in free agency. Either way, they might not have him next year.
Any D-line help.
Joey Bosa hasn't been the force he was previously with all the injuries.
I like Mike Green next. I don't know. Where's Trevor on Mike Green? He's not high yet. Where's Mike Green from Marshall? 47 on the PFF board. He's up to 34.
This is the guy with the absurd profile statistically. Like his athleticism, his stable metrics. I think I saw Marcus Mosher posting out his PFF stable metric stuff.
Green?
They're all like off the charts.
Yeah.
Absurd.
He's outstanding. Our guy Renner highlighted him before the season.
Yeah, the highest PFF grade of any edge rusher in the nation last year. 92.5 overall, 91.6 a pass rusher, 61 total pressures, 17 sacks.
Yeah, he's legit.
Nuts.
We should get him. Let's get the Mike Green hype going.
I saw somebody tweeting, like, I was wondering why an underclassman from Marshall declared for the draft. It was like, that, okay, now I understand.
That's
now.
why.
Yeah,
No, he's legit. Let's take Mike Green this high.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Mike Green. Trevor will catch up. He'll get him higher.
47. Wow, that's cold.
Yeah, he'll get him
cold.
Green Bay Packers.
I think so. Like, this is one where
hate their picks.
Yeah, like, is wide receiver a need for them because they don't have this number one, or is this just how they want to do things?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's a massive need.
The alternative is like, who's
they're
the
all
best
young and solid.
Who's the best tackle we can project into guard?
Who's the next tackle guard projection here? Could they be a Kenneth Grant team? They already have Slayton coming back.
Yeah, Slayton. You got Devontae Wyatt, very different type of player, obviously, but an interior defensive lineman. I mean, it's not a need, but it wouldn't. He could play. Like, it would. There's a roster spot for him. There's a rotational.
Slayton's a pending free agent. I think Grant could be the guy here.
I like that.
How about that?
Yeah.
Kenneth Grant.
That makes that defensive line
Packers.
nasty.
I was gonna mention Grant to the Chargers. There's a Michigan connection too, with Harbaugh. But we got enamored with Mike Green.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Starting the Mike Green hype. Yeah, let's go Kenneth Grant here to the Packers. Vikings up now. Oh, I love that.
Minnesota with like their only draft pick.
They don't have much. You're right.
They have the least draft capital of any team in this draft.
They have 3 picks. The Falcons have 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
And obviously they pick lower than Atlanta, so they have less draft capital.
So I'll admit I haven't watched him closely, but Tyler Booker, the consensus top interior offensive lineman. Do you just go straight need pick here?
It's such a glaring weakness for them for years now. But they don't.
Was it Rutledge? I liked.
They haven't tended to sort of knee jerk for that. Remember, they had a game. They lost a playoff game a couple of years ago to a bad Giants team because Dexter Lawrence single-handedly destroyed the interior of their offensive line, and they just shrugged and went, "Yeah, okay."
Guard's going to be an interesting one because I think Donovan Jackson is at 43 on the consensus board from Ohio State. Is he? He's not on the list here because he's been playing tackle, so PFF probably had to move he's probably in as a tackle at the moment.
Right.
Donovan Jackson, I'm assuming. Is he just not on the? Might not be on the list.
There he is.
He's going to be he's a guard. But he's moved out to left tackle and played really well. He is a fringe first rounder who could pass protect. I just don't know. I don't know if Kwesi's going to take a guard this year.
And I think you could argue that the bigger glaring weakness is actually corner, where none of them are under contract.
Oh, let's go Ravel then.
Mekhi Blackman, who obviously got hurt with his ACL, is the only corner they have basically under contract.
Okay, that's the way to go for Minnesota. Let's go Siobhan Ravel.
All right.
I forget how to pronounce his name, but we'll go with that.
We'll go with that for the moment.
East Carolina,
so
coming off his injury. Ball hawk who can move. Love it. As of right now, we don't have the divisional round games played as of record time here. Texans are picking at 25.
Yes, right.
These could change.
Good stipulation.
Thank you. Houston Texans here.
Hopefully we get out before those games. Is that offensive line again? Are we back to the offensive line? Did they?
Yes. Go Membu. Next guy up.
Guard.
Who's
Did
next?
They take the best guard
or tackle?
Well, Fisher's
more of a pure tackle,
right? And they, rookie this year, right? So they presumably, I think, want to keep him there for a while. Does that mean that Titus Howard is now a guard for them going forward? Shaq Mason is still there as a guard, and you've got 2 young centers.
Guard, it could be a guard / tackle.
You've almost got, it's weird. Like, you've got a bad offensive line, but actually 4 or 5 players that they must kind of like from that offensive line. It's almost strange. It's almost hard to find the player to come in and upgrade it.
You got to add depth there, though.
Yeah. So, who's our best offensive line we're taking?
PFF board's got Membu. I think the consensus board, where are we here? Ursary from Minnesota. Connerly's more of a pure tackle from Oregon. Cam Williams, more of a pure tackle. I like Millam from West Virginia still.
Tyler Booker, Alabama monster.
Booker's more your pure guard.
Yeah.
Go Booker.
Power.
All right.
Power player. He got some power to that.
Go Tyler Booker. Trevor's lower on him. Los Angeles Rams up on the clock.
Why does Trevor hate all the people we like?
The consensus board likes. Rams up on the clock here at pick 26.
Can't even find Booker. Where is he?
Under guards? Is it 66 on the PFF one?
Yeah, it was just the overall thing. Yeah, 66. Wow.
27 on the consensus
All right,
board.
who we got up now? The Rams.
Where could the Rams go?
Yeah, they're an interesting team.
They could use youth at corner.
Yeah. Their corners, they've got a lot of young guys that played okay. The defensive line is a superstar set now based off current evidence. We might reevaluate that if they get crushed by the Eagles again.
It's another one of the teams I think that would love Tyler Warren if he was still available. You know, if you didn't love him more.
Yeah.
At pick 13, Colston Loveland at Michigan, Harold Fannin. It's going to be a hot name. Wait till you see him at the Senior Bowl.
I guess corner would make sense. They're losing Witherspoon as a free agent at the moment. Emmanuel Forbes they signed, but he's shown nothing to suggest that he would just step in and be the starter. So second starter is
corner 5 on the consensus board is Jedi Barron from Texas. One of my guys was Trey Amos, like more my guy in like early adopter. I was an early adopter on Trey Amos.
Okay.
Before he transferred to Bama, then transferred to Ole Miss, and now people are up on him at number 44 overall on the consensus board, and Trevor's got him up at 29. I think Barron or Amos are fine late first and into the second. So,
all right, let's grab a corner.
Jedi Barron from Texas going to the Los Angeles Rams. Commanders are up. Where do you want to go with Washington here?
It's got to be defense, right? Or do you want to add?
Or offensive line?
The offensive line was pretty good this year, though. Like,
it
looked weak on paper.
I think they mitigated it. I still don't necessarily trust Brandon Coleman as the future left tackle.
Right, but are you giving up on him after a year?
No, but you could add depth. I think D-line.
They
definitely need more juice.
What's best player available?
So Shamar Stewart is going to be an interesting one. He's still available, right?
Would they, Jack Sawyer on the defensive line, edge rusher from Ohio State?
I like Jack Sawyer. That was one of my favorite podcast moments of the year. It was when the Ringer podcast had the Jack Sawyer interception.
Oh, the Gus Johnson.
The Gus Johnson. They did.
Yeah, that was very good.
Guys.
Yeah.
Danny and all, they did a great job.
They did. It was funny.
I watched it on repeat a lot. It was hilarious. Yeah. Jack Sawyer makes a lot of big plays. Yeah. Interception against Michigan, the strip sack against Texas.
Gus Johnson's voice did like the Kirk Cousins break, crack, mid-call.
It was unbelievable. Shamar Stewart is like a bendy 6'7", 290, might fall in the like old school 3-4 defensive end bucket.
Mm-hmm.
I think he could be in play, and Sawyer's just a good man. I'm okay with him in the late.
I like Sawyer. Would you Sawyer?
Let's go Jack Sawyer here.
Sweet.
To Washington. More good football players.
All right, a few more picks. 5 left. Baltimore, that's current standing.
They never have it. Like they're always just like add more defensive line, right? Where's their big need?
Yeah, obviously, they've got certain positions that they clearly don't need to touch. Are they still in the market for a corner given the weakness that we were talking about the other day? Potential weakness, anyway. Yeah. Brandon Stevens.
You'll love Trey Amos because he's a little grabby.
Oh, nice.
I like him. A little grabby. Gets caught with some holding calls every now and again.
He's your kind of guy.
He's my kind of guy.
Grabby Amos.
Trey Amos.
Grabby Amos is what we call him.
Give Amos. They had him and Nate Wiggins as the future here.
Trey Amos it is.
Yeah, Trey Amos, the corner.
Nate Wiggins is a little grabby too.
Buffalo Bills. They're the team I think was interesting for Kenneth Grant if he falls.
Which he doesn't here.
He doesn't. But do they need to continue to get young on the edge? Are they a Shamar Stewart potential team here?
Yeah, definitely. Von Miller obviously is reaching the very end. Gregory Rousseau is basically their one dominant pass rusher at times. Ed Oliver is pretty good as a pass rusher, can blow hot and cold. Defensive line definitely makes a lot of sense.
If you look at their two deep, not too many free agents, not too many guys. Yeah. They reset this roster, made it younger, and they are in a good spot to just keep drafting the best players right now.
Like they were a team that we were thinking, they may run into roster trouble. They've kind of navigated that trouble, and they're now in pretty good shape again.
In reality, if Walter Nolan is a late first rounder, he could be a nice, adding another interior rusher if he was available. But
The Ohio State defensive tackle, is it Tyleek Williams?
Yeah. Oh, he's a good player. I've been joking that Ohio State has all second rounders, but I think Sawyer and Tyleek are the two that could sneak into the first.
Yeah, and we're at that.
He could stop the run. They could use that.
That's what I'm saying. And we're at that kind of that area.
Williams. Good shout, man.
Thank you.
I like that. Which offensive, defensive lineman will the Eagles take here?
Ah.
At pick 30.
So
they're taking Shamar Stewart.
They're taking Shamar Stewart. Yeah, I mean it's got to be right, offense or defensive line.
That's what they do.
It is. Well, also there's nothing else to take at this spot. We're kind of running out of other positions.
I'm curious about Princely Umanmielen out of Ole Miss, former Gator.
Nice naming.
Yes. Well, Prince Will Umanmielen has just transferred into Ole Miss. Prince Lee has transferred out of Ole Miss.
Prince Will, one word?
Prince Will, yeah.
Okay.
Umanmielen. Yes. I'm curious if people see him as a first rounder. And then the other guy, Donovan Ezuraku from BC, I think could sneak into the first round. Very good player. Had kind of a breakout. He's at 68 on the consensus board. This is what I'm saying. Like, I'm kind of anticipating people catching up to the hype. Ezuraku. Make sure I get it right. I could see him being a late first here. This would be a bold move, though, given, I don't know where's he on the PFF board here? Donovan. He's an edge. You probably got to scroll. Where do they have him right now? See, yeah, he's got him in a similar 46. I'm just saying he could be that late first rounder that fits the Eagles.
I wonder how many years Lane Johnson has left. You know, they've done a pretty good job of succession building on the offensive line. Remember, they drafted Jason Kelsey's successor a couple of years before he retired. Like they've been doing a pretty good job of like planning for the future in that line. And generally speaking, those guys have stepped in and done well. So I mean, Lane Johnson, should have been All-Pro this year. He's still as good as it gets as a right tackle. He is, however, getting old.
Do you want to go the next two? Ariante Ursary from Minnesota, Josh Connerly from Oregon.
I mean, you were talking about Ursary as being a sort of raw, developmental type of guy, right?
Yeah, Connerly's got some of that. Ursary's bigger a little bit. Yeah,
I mean, does that
I'm
make
just saying,
sense,
like the
right?
next two, I think that the Chiefs could be in the mix for
Sure.
a similar player.
But it kind of makes sense for them to take a guy that might need a bit of development and sit him behind Lane Johnson for a bit, right?
Yeah, let's do that.
Minnesota
tackle. He's a little bit lower for Trevor, I believe.
Quite a lot lower, 63.
There he is. I like Ozzie Trapilo. He's a good solid second-round tackle from BC.
Kansas City, according to the sim, it says Detroit to win it all.
Yeah, the sim right now has Lions over the Chiefs in the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm. Which is also what I had in my pre-season pick.
It's almost certainly going to happen. I think Connerly from Oregon as a tackle, or my guy Millam from West Virginia would be a good tackle option here. You can either try to get your left tackle of the future to take over for the other second and third. Now, this would be the third straight year they've drafted a tackle.
Yeah, but the
third round, second round, now first round.
The highest they've done it.
This would be the highest, yeah.
And they still need it, right? I mean, wouldn't you'd have to take one if this is still the problem, like there's no solution.
Yeah.
Left tackle is still an issue running through the playoffs. Could you get away without? I mean, unless they sign somebody in free agency.
Unless Joe Tooney's just the left tackle of the future.
Well, then you need a guard.
More defensive line depth, like Derek Harmon's an interior penetrator from Oregon, who's really good. He's at 26 on the consensus board. Could consider that next to Chris Jones.
Mm-hmm.
I would go either one of those, tackle or maybe a Harmon at defensive tackle.
I think I would take the tackle, wouldn't you?
Yeah, let's do that. I like Millam or Connerly from Oregon.
Okay, which one? Millam?
I'll go Millam. I like Millam.
West Virginia.
Kind of plays a little hunched over, but he's got good strength. I think he coached that out of him.
Coach at the hunch.
It's not a full waist bend. It's a little hunch.
Okay, a hunch. You don't see that very often.
No, you don't.
Detroit Lions, final
Lions
team.
At 32
on the
Super Bowl
clock.
Champs.
Coming fresh off a Super Bowl victory. Their first.
Doesn't even matter. Doesn't matter what we do. We just won the Super Bowl.
Just won the Super
cares?
Bowl. How do they go back to the Super Bowl, back-to-back champions?
Got to look at it more edge help, right?
Well, so you'll obviously be getting Aiden Hutchinson back, right? But they got Zadarius Smith. Is he a free agent? Is there a one-year thing?
Let me see here.
For Zadarius? Or do they have him more than a year? Either way.
Even if they do, just D-line.
Yeah, but it's not a need if you have him and Hutchinson. It's obviously.
They have the right guard need once again.
Yeah, so
Zadarius got another year.
Zadarius still there. The interior, you've got.
Everybody's coming back.
Yeah, you're getting all those players back.
Onwuzurike's contract is up, I believe, after former second rounder.
You are losing Carlton Davis, though, so now you're relying on Terry and Arnold taking a step forward. You've obviously got like some depth there in terms of young players, but not
2 corners though. First 2 picks.
Right, but now they need to be good. This is like the problem that Cincinnati had, right? Where they it's one thing to future-proof those positions. It's another thing when you actually rely on those guys to be playing well. Otherwise, you have problems. So do you add even further insurance by drafting another guy, or do you just let it roll and hope they're good?
I just don't know if you have the depth here in this class.
Kevin Zeitler hitting free agency after his 1-year deal.
Next guard
you could
up.
Potentially get a right guard to start right away.
I don't know if the value's there. I would say Umenmielen would be an interesting DPR type, straight up designated pass rusher.
Right.
Opposite
Who's the top guy in the consensus board that we haven't drafted yet? It's Milroe.
Jalen Milroe.
It's probably not him. Then it would be Colson Loveland, tight end from Michigan. Probably not him.
Probably not him.
Ibuka, the wide receiver from Ohio State.
He's got a good yak guy.
I mean, it would be interesting just in terms of continuing to throw weapons at that offense endlessly.
Linebacker's not a huge need. Jahad Campbell at 32 on the consensus board from Alabama.
Yeah.
But they're pretty stocked there with Jack Campbell and Anzalone.
Right.
And more depth behind them. I think Umenmielen was the guy I would keep an eye on. Nick Emenwari from South Carolina. Pretty versatile safety. Good athlete. But they got they already have a bunch of those guys. This is what I'm saying. Like, they're really loaded depth-wise.
Yeah. No, they're in good spot. I mean, I think
Donovan Jackson could be interesting. Maybe he's maybe that's where he goes. Starting guard.
I would either grab Jackson as my starting guard, or cornerback would be the next sort of the biggest need, quote unquote, for them. I think is to try and make sure that position doesn't become a weakness.
All right. I don't think the corner value is here. Do you want to go?
So let's just do Donovan Jackson.
He's making money playing left tackle during the college football playoff around here.
Making money.
He is making money. He's under tackles right now, Tyler.
Quite a way down.
Just because
91.
Again the position had to be changed for the games. So there he is. He's at 91 right
91.
now. Trevor's going to move him up. Donovan Jackson, late first. Boom. There it is.
There's
first
our mock
draft. It's probably perfect. It's probably how it's going to go.
Oops, that play isn't on our playbook quite yet. Is that our grade? We don't have a grade?
I'm glad. No, they got rid of it.
It's an ungradable show.
Well, we reached all the time. We don't want it.
Right. It's an ungradable mock. That's how bad it was.
We reached per the PFF board.
You hear it all the time, right? Worst mock ever. That was so bad, it was ungraded.
Ungradable. There you go. First mock.
Done.
In the books. Let us know in the comments. And what else you want to see draft season. We'll have plenty more mocks. We'll be doing them all sorts of different style. We'll do, back and forth. I'll have one. You'll have one. We'll do interactive mocks. All sorts of mocks. More mocks than you can handle.
Yeah. Let us know in the comments who you would have drafted for your player.
What did we screw up? We definitely screwed up at least 5 teams.
Yeah.
What do you hate the most?
What do you hate the most?
All right. That's it for us today. We'll see you again. More. Check the mic.